That was close. I'm glad I checked. Welcome back to another episode of Downloadable Content. We are SJ.
And Alex Herschel, and today we're going to talk about Pokemon Legends Arceus.
Let's get right into it.
Herschel, Herschel, Herschel.
This
Sorry,
is
so
kind of funny.
we're laughing because we just we started this episode and we made it probably 5 minutes into it before SJ realized that I had forgotten to click record. So we're restarting real quick. Um, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Um, what did we say at the beginning?
um. We're gonna as we go throughout this episode, we're pronouncing it Arceus. Um,
Arceus. Yes.
I know it's a hotly debated topic, but that's what you'll hear at least from me. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and then my theory on why I think it's Arceus is because in Japanese it's Aruseusu se. That would imply that it's meant to be pronounced as Arceus. But I think they changed it to be actually pronounced Arceus in English because Arceus sounds like the booty word.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Um, yeah, and then before we get into that though, we have an audience question from Zirma. He asks, "What are some hobbies or talents you have that most of us don't know about?"
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, go for it.
So I've got two quick ones. One I haven't been able to do very much recently. But creative writing, I really enjoy writing my own stories, that kind of stuff. But it is something that takes so much active effort that you have to have a good amount of time for it. And I don't right now, or in the free time that I do have, because of how much effort it takes, I'm like, this isn't as relaxing as what I need something to be or how I need to spend my time. So I haven't done much of it recently. But it is something that I enjoy doing when I have chunks of time. Um, and one that is newly developing is watch collecting. Um, I started to get these ads for watches on my Instagram feed and um got me hooked. I tried to buy like some cheap watches just to like satiate the urge. Um and it hasn't stopped. Um
Mm-hmm.
I want more of them
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so that's what I've got.
Good stuff, man. I love a good watch collection. Yeah, that is fun. Um, Mine is one of mine. I don't I don't know if I have talked about this or not. I used to be really into art, drawing, painting. A lot of the members of my family, would know this. That was kind of my main focus when I was in high school. I focused on art and math. But I felt like there were other people that were better than me. Um, and Kind of in a good way. It's kind of wholesome. So, my little sister, she's always drawn, I've always drawn and stuff. And there's a good chunk of time when, I think I was ahead of her in terms of just general skill level. And then when she hit high school, she just zoomed right past me. She is absolutely incredible at what she does. She's really good at portraits, um, anime portraits kind of style too, or like really hyper realistic portraits and things. She's really, really good. And um, so it wasn't anything that discouraged me. I don't feel bitter about it or anything, but I felt that my time is probably better utilized elsewhere. Um, and I was proud of her, for being that good. Um, and also, I also admittedly didn't put a ton of time into it after high school because it's really difficult to make a full-blown career out of it. So, you know, there's that. And I'd say the other thing that most of you may not know, and again, I mean, for those of you listening that are like my family and really close friends, you are gonna know this stuff. But um, I think I'm fairly handy in terms of like fixing stuff, housework, all of the carpet that's in a house. I laid that all by myself. Um, I fixed sprinkler heads. I've torn apart and fixed cameras. I can do soldering. I've done all these different things. So, electronics to stuff around the house. I think I'm all right at fixing things and solving problems. So, and I kind of enjoy it too. It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely something satisfying about successfully fixing something, right?
Uh-huh.
Like when my car was having issues and eventually we tracked down that it was a bad terminal, replacing it myself, it took me way too long because it was like it's this really specific car terminal part and I couldn't figure out how to get it off with like how things were layered and stuff, but eventually getting it and then the car not blowing up when you start it again. Um, very satisfying. I know you've had a couple home projects now, like your I think you've talked about it before, but like your light fixtures
Yeah, yeah.
that you put in and stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's definitely good to have those skills, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice.
And it's not like necessarily knowing how to do everything, right? It's kind of more of a in the moment analyzing, okay, why isn't this happening? What's the engineering behind it? What part is the failure point and how do you fix that? That whole process is pretty fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nice.
good question.
Okay. So
I have one thing to say before we get into the main topic too. I just want to say, have you heard of this game called Avowed?
I've only heard about it from the Discord chat. I haven't really looked into it too much myself.
Yeah, I looked at the trailer and actually Zaruma bought the game with early access and he's been playing it and really enjoying it. It looks like Skyrim but combat focused and the combat is like way more in depth and fleshed out. You've got combos and you've got parrying and all these different kind of things, all first person, which I think is a pretty fresh take on hand to hand, combat with magic and swords and shields and stuff. So if I may get that game eventually. That might be my next one that I end up playing.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm
Nice.
gonna have to wait till it's, had the full 1.0 release and I'll watch YouTube videos and things.
Like you're interested enough to put off the backlog for that game specifically.
Well, I don't know that I have a big backlog anymore.
You kind of worked through a lot of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a couple things, but a lot of the games in my backlog are games that can be played like infinitely, they're not
Sure.
like I'm playing through Skyrim right now for the millionth time. But
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking at Avowed right now to
yeah,
I
is it
mean,
showing you the gameplay and stuff?
yeah, and it's got some reputable developers behind it. I've never played an Obsidian game, but I know Obsidian's pretty well respected.
Uh-huh.
Um, huh.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
What what's your gaming situation right now?
Limited.
Yeah.
I I'm gonna try to finish Shadow of the Colossus tonight. But I started it, Shadow of the Colossus you play in like 4 or 5 hours, right? Um, I got about halfway through it a couple weeks, like back in January, and then
Mm-hmm.
just have not had the time, either had the time or if I've had the time, not had the energy to like play a game since. And depending on when this goes out, we are recording this on February 17th. So it's been like a month and a half since I've really played a game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah,
Gotcha,
I need to
gotcha.
get back into it, right? I'm gonna run out of things that we can talk about on the podcast if I don't. So, um, yeah, we'll see.
Okay. All right. All right. So Legends Arceus, I have put together a list of what I particularly liked and then some things that I didn't like. If you'd like, we can. So this is going to be a game review from both of our perspectives. I think we can talk about the different aspects of the game, get each of our opinions, what we liked, didn't like, agree, disagree, and then kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, I
But did you
think
have a specific outline you'd like to follow, or
no, I think that's fine.
yeah,
Because I'll be coming at it from a person who played it a couple years ago.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think we'll still cover all our main topics. And I'll just add in my thoughts when we get to it based off of what you've got written down. So let's
okay,
do it.
all right. Well, let me just I'll just start off with what comes to my mind first, just the overworld. Um, I think is really good. I actually think that game is decently well optimized for Game Freak standards. I don't know why they can't do that for the mainline series, but they seem to not be able to manage that. It looks good, and the art style I think plays well to the limitations of the Switch graphics. It was kind of reminiscent of how they made Skyward Sword look on the Wii, kind of knowing that you're not going to get this crisp HD image, leaning into that and just having a watercolor art style that just was gorgeous. It reminded me of that a little bit, and because the overworld wasn't, and the overall art style, it wasn't this punchy, contrasty, you know, um, colorful game that usually is Pokemon. That I really liked that. It was kind of toned down a little bit, saturation was turned down a little bit. Um, it honestly made the Pokemon feel more at home and like they actually belong in the overworld when you see them. It was more believable. It wasn't like I'm walking along some path and I see this big dragon Pokemon just like pop out of nowhere and it renders and then it's like got all these bright colors and it just clearly is there for the sake of being there rather than popping out of the grass. Um, I think that whole world and how they built it, made it look was done really, really well.
Yeah. No, I agree. I as a Sinnoh lover, the overworld and art style itself is something that I really enjoyed, and I like how um within as Pokemon games have kind of continued on in their lifespan, the UI has usually stayed the same regardless of what area you're in or what region you're in or that kind of stuff. And I appreciate how, since this is supposed to be, much earlier time frame for Pokemon, that the UI and overall design of things reflects that, or it's a little bit more rudimentary and
Mm-hmm.
not as technologically advanced. And taking the Sinnoh region and making it a full 3D scape to explore, um, it's pretty well done. Um, yeah, I'm a big fan of the overworld as a whole. No.
I like that you mentioned the UI too because it took me a little bit to get used to at first because I wasn't used to it. You push up on the D-pad to pull up the menu and um but I ended up really liking it because there's less of pulling up a thing, clicking on a thing to transition to the thing and then do the changes in the thing. Like you pull up your menu, you've got the Pokemon on the right, the items on the left. You don't have to swap between screens to get things done. I think it was way more efficient. And in this day and age, a game like Pokemon that is pretty old school in terms of gameplay really needs to incorporate more modern features like that, I think, to reduce the friction between the inputs and what's happening on the screen, and I think the UI did that pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. Any other is there another aspect you'd like to talk about next? No. Um, I really enjoyed the design of the Pokemon in general. I thought it was really cool. I like the different variants. I love Typhlosion, the ghost, fire, just so nice looking, very adorable. Um, I yeah, and there's a couple different variants, that are I think only in that game from what I understand. Um, and but even more than that, the moves of the Pokemon, I have some mixed feelings about this. So you only have four moves like you do in a regular game, but once a Pokemon levels up enough, it'll master its moves, and that lets you do an agile style move, which essentially makes your next turn come a little bit quicker at the expense of damage, or you can do a strong style move, which at the expense of your speed, you'll do more damage and it'll be a little bit more accurate. And that introduces kind of a whole different type of strategy than you typically have. And I thought that was an interesting twist, and I think it worked fairly well um, because you have and I'm touching on a lot of different topics, but it's just because I think they mesh together. When you spot a Pokemon, you can um, engage it. You can throw a Pokeball at it, to try to catch it, or you can throw one of your Pokemon at it to engage into battle. And when you engage battle, there's no there's no transition screen. It just goes straight into the battle, and you can even run around the area um, as the player as you're battling this wild Pokemon. And if you're trying to catch a Pokemon, you literally, as you would, I think, in real life, just throw the ball at it. And if you catch it, great. There's no transition ever happened in terms of screens or anything. And if you don't catch it, it might get scared and run away, or get aggregated and try to, or aggravated and try to attack you. So then you want to, you know, run away or fight it with your Pokemon or whatever. So that whole thing was so seamless. Um, it honestly surprised me how quickly I was able to just run around, catch Pokemon, battle a few here and there. It was never a chore to run into Pokemon because I could just run away or fly away or ride on the little deer thing. Um, or battles were really quick. And so I think the whole agile style, strong style, that whole system, I think contributes to the how quick those battles end. That it made it so much less tedious than it usually is to have wild Pokemon encounters.
I think that the agile and strong style should become a mainstay in the series as a whole. Um, I think it makes so much sense because I've always kind of wondered why, if a Pokemon has speed of 150 and then you go against a Pokemon that has a speed of 10, why you're still trading moves equally. Um, like I don't have a problem with that in the base game, right? Like that's how Pokemon's always been. That's fine. But from like a stats and like a lore standpoint, talking about lore of Pokemon, okay. Um, like it makes sense to me that there would be ways for Pokemon who are naturally faster to be able to get more hits in on these slower Pokemon.
Yeah, like attacked twice in a row, right? And
Uh-huh.
that never happens in a regular game.
Right. And there were even times where if I had a Pokemon that was fast enough, like without using an agile move, I would still get to do two attacks before the other one.
Yes.
And I really, really like that idea. I think it makes a whole lot more sense and makes each of your Pokemon stats much more impactful on the game, I guess, because like in certain Pokemon games, like if you've got a Pokemon that's got enough health and enough defense, doesn't matter that he's crazy slow. Like it isn't debilitating at all because he can just tank it out and he'll still get equal chances to hit the opposing Pokemon. The only advantage is who goes first. And so having a game where no like speed means a lot more, and just because you've got a whole bunch of health doesn't mean necessarily that you're gonna have an equal opportunity against a Pokemon that's able to move that fast or moves fast and has decent attack with it. So I think it makes you think a lot more about the balance of your team. Um, so I really, really enjoy it and I'm a fan of it. And even though they didn't put it in Scarlet and Violet, I hope that it's something that comes back in a semi-regular way at some point.
So I actually agree. I disagree with that point that so one of the things that I missed was the regular turn by turn play. And so like I think how quickly the battles play out work well for this game. I missed the slowing down the opponent strategy, the toxic, the protect, the stalling kind of strategy. That is non-existent in this game, and if it is there, it's completely irrelevant. You know, in this game, whoever that can hit the quickest, fastest, and the hardest is going to win the battles. Um, so I missed that from the regular game. It essentially takes out several play styles of Pokemon and completely invalidates it. In fact, those moves don't even exist in the game because the developers, I think, knew that they would be irrelevant. Um, so I really, really missed that. That's one thing that I didn't like about the game. But I'm not really gonna say that it's a fault of the game because I think it's just a different direction that the developers wanted to take it. And so I respect it for what it is. I wonder if there's a fine medium point where we could come to, but so I personally I don't know about the address style and strong style. I don't know if I want that to stick around permanently. Because in my opinion, from my understanding, at least competitively speaking, speed is the most important stat, even in the regular game. Being able to go first offers so much advantage, even if you never get to attack twice in a row. Um, and so I think if how speed is executed in this game became permanent across all Pokemon, slow Pokemon would just not be viable anymore because speed is just such a overpowered stat at that point. Um, you know, I don't know. What do you
I
think?
I think I disagree with that because I never felt like my fast. It's like there were plenty of times where I would have a Pokemon and they'd be faster. They'd even arguably have better stats. But in this game, what seemed to be like the most impactful was um like the type advantage tree more than anything. Whereas you can be severely over leveled, but if a Pokemon's got a super effective hit on you, it doesn't matter how over leveled you are. Like you are going down more so than I ever felt like in any of the base games. I never really felt like speed was an unfair stat, I guess, in my playthrough. Like I always felt like it was 100% more of a an aesthetic thing than like a huge strategic game changer, I guess, in my experience.
Hmm.
But
So, for example, think about a move like Dragon Dance. It increases your speed and your attack. So if
mhm.
you've got a dragon dancing Altaria or something, it's increasing its speed, it's increasing its attack. If it manages to set up like two or three times and it's gonna outspeed your Pokemon every time, you're just gonna get swept, you know? And that's where speed comes in to play, where if you can't outspeed Altaria at all, you're you're screwed, right? So like
Sure, sure, but I mean that's the case in the base games too, though. Like if someone
no, that's
gets
what I'm saying in the base game is
okay,
is that's how it goes. So if now Altaria's speed is so high that it's, getting two hits in a row on you and stuff, I don't know. I don't
okay,
know.
I mean okay.
I think both are balanced. I don't think that the way
Yeah.
that Arceus does it is unbalanced
Oh, yeah.
because because in the base game you'd have, you'd be taking turns, but it's gonna hit every single time you throw out a new Pokemon, right? But in
Hmm.
Arceus, after it's thrown out like one or two moves, no matter how slow your Pokemon is, you will be able to go first because Altaria has already moved so many times in a row,
Uh,
right? Um, so like there's no scenario where Altaria can always attack your Pokemon first because that's not how speed works in that game.
uh-huh.
So I think they're both fairly balanced. I just kind of want some slower paced play styles, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just yeah,
Fair
yeah.
enough.
Um, Let me pull out my list of stuff here. Okay. Um, Swapping moves on the go is that has to be. Can we please implement that? I do not see how that can be a con for anything, right? Isn't that just a win-win for everybody if we don't have to go to the move tutor every time we want to reteach a move? Is it overpowered that we can do that? I don't think it is.
Um, I don't think so. I think by the time that you get to kind of the end game anyway, your Pokemon are probably going to have a pretty set move set
Yeah, yeah.
regardless.
Hmm.
Um, and I think not punishing the player for trying out different play styles is a good thing, right? Like
Hmm.
in the old games, if you're like, "Oh, I'm not entirely sure if I want to keep this move, but I've got a couple ideas, I just kind of want to try it out." In order to change it back, if you end up deciding you don't like it, is kind of a hassle, and you have to use
Hmm.
rare resources. Um, so no, I think that it should be the standard, absolutely, that you can change. Like if a Pokemon's learned a move, then not being able to go into a battle actively using all of them is fine, but
Right.
like they shouldn't forget it and never be able to use it again. So
Yeah, they're not that stupid. Come on, what are we doing?
yeah.
They're really not
I mean,
that
if
dumb.
if you have a Pokemon that can freaking harness the energy of space and time, but because it forgot a move a couple weeks ago and it can't remember how to use it, like, come on now.
No,
Come on.
it's especially because we're done with HMs now, right?
Mm,
That's not a thing anymore. And I think the only reason why you would have to go to remove tutor in previous games that makes sense from like a gameplay standpoint is that you wouldn't ever want to get soft locked or something. Um, so it made sense. But yeah, let's have that be a main staple of just all the games across the board. Um, yeah, I liked knowing random encounters in the grass. The grass is a hiding place rather than a place where Pokemon come out. Um, there's kind of like something exciting about random encounters when you encounter like a rare Pokemon, in the grass, but I don't know. I had that same sense of excitement when I saw one in the overworld, it was really cool. And I think the size of the Pokemon too are scaled really well. Like they're realistically like well sized. Um, so I don't know. Do you like random encounters? Would you be done away with it?
um, I mean, I think I prefer the style of seeing what's coming. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've kind of had that in some capacity ever since. I mean, I know they had it in Sword and Shield. Like, if you went into the grass, you could still get hit with a random encounter, but for the most part, you could see where Pokemon were.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's a good thing. I don't think anyone particularly enjoys going through an entire route, and if somehow, some way, you're down to your last Pokemon and you get hit with a random encounter and you die and you have to go all the way back and start
It's
the
just
route
tedious.
over. Right,
Yeah.
like it's not enjoyable. It's not like
No, it's not adding anything.
it wasn't really your fault. Well, it was your fault, but it wasn't from a gameplay perspective. It's more like a planning thing than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing how many battles you're gonna have to fight until you can get to another Pokemon Center. No, so I think going away with random encounters is a good thing, personally.
Yeah, and the thing that's most important now that, if they're just going to focus on having Pokemon out in the overworld, that's great, but like Game Freak just needs to keep making where the Pokemon are, how you find them, like believable, Like you shouldn't just have this like flat land or whatever and Pokemon are just popping up here and there because then it's so it just takes you out of the game, Like they got to make it immersive and I think Legends Arceus was a great first step into doing that. Because that helps you immerse into the game and it makes it way more exciting.
Yeah.
Um, okay. I Let me because you mentioned like going back to the Pokemon Center, I think this is a good transition. I really liked the crafting system in this game. I usually don't care a lot for crafting because it's tedious to pick up items and stuff and you got to worry about this and manage your resources, but it didn't feel tedious because the resources you need are pretty much all over the place. You find them all the time. You don't really need to go out of your way to get stuff as long as you're picking up whatever you find in between missions. So I really liked it because you could craft healing items quite easily, and it made it so that you don't have to make the trip back to heal your Pokemon and then go back and forth and make that trip so many times. You can just heal with the resources that you have out in the wild. So I think it just made the whole experience way more seamless.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Um, Let me talk about some things I didn't like.
Okay.
I've already talked about just the quick nature of the battle. I think it's just a double-edged sword. I like certain aspects of it, certain aspects I didn't like. I wish that we had different play styles, way to slow down some of the battles. Um, and as a result of that, what can happen is, um, for example, the very final boss fight. I won't mention who it is, but it's a pretty cool fight. I enjoy it. I haven't completely beaten it yet, because it's pretty freaking difficult. I grinded for like a while to like level up my team. I still have not beaten it yet. But that's not my problem. I'm good with that because it's kind of like it's after the credits roll too, you know. And I think I have enjoyed the full extent of the game before beating this boss. But um, the game is so focused on just hitting fast and hitting heavy that half the time the battles end up being, unless you're really over leveled, you're just trading blows back and forth. You knock out a Pokemon in like one go. Your opponent knocks out your Pokemon in one go, and you're just trading back and forth and back and forth. And so, um, like, I don't know, that frustrated me a little bit because, especially because I feel like the only option I have to avoid that situation is to like insanely overlevel my Pokemon, you know? Like I can't comfortably win even if like my team is objectively better. Like no matter how I go about the battle, like even if I wipe out the first Pokemon, no problem, their second Pokemon's gonna come out, do an agile style to take down my health, and then a strong style to take out the rest of my health. And it's just a rinse and repeat back and forth. That got a little old for me. So I think the agile style and the strong style, like it does add its own unique um, strategy to the gameplay, but I think overall the battle strategy is more shallow than the baseline games because of that. It's pretty one dimensional in my opinion. There's not a lot of different ways of utilizing it that makes a battle particularly sophisticated. Um, and but the thing that I did like is so in modern Pokemon games, usually when you defeat your opponent's Pokemon, you'll get the option, "Hey, do you want to swap your character? He's about to throw out this Pokemon." Why in the world would you know that information? And why in the world would you be able to swap out your Pokemon at the same time to give yourself an unfair advantage against the opponent? That's unrealistic. I don't like it. Um, in fact, these days I don't. I always just mash B because I want to give myself a better challenge and make it fair between myself and the opponent. So I like that that's not a thing in this game at all. You know, you defeat the opponent's Pokemon, they're just throwing out the next Pokemon, right? You don't know who it is. They're gonna throw out whoever is their best mon against yours. I like that. Um,
Um, just
yeah,
gonna. So there is the option to play that way in the base games. Um,
not anymore.
Not anymore. They don't give you an option for set mode anymore.
Nope. In Violet and Scarlet, they took that away. That's not an option anymore.
Oh, that's terrible.
I know. So you just have to mash B every time. It's
Okay.
so lame.
We're also about to run out of time.
A few moments later.
No, I mean, I definitely thought this was a right move for difficulty, and I think the agile and swift move system is actually the reason why they had to um not allow you to switch out your Pokemon, because if you're doing that, I think it's a lot easier of a game. So
I would agree.
I,
Yeah.
I think I agree with you there. So
Yeah. Okay. Cool, cool. Um, my only other negative thing that I'll say that I didn't like is you don't get any EXP until the very end of the battle. Um, I don't think it's a very good system because what ends up happening is like especially in battles where like you're fighting like decent trainers, you're gonna exhaust most of your Pokemon, and the only Pokemon that at EXP are the ones that survive the battle. Um, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We should get EXP as each Pokemon is defeated. I think it's fine to not give EXP to the ones that have fainted. You know, that's always been a thing, but I don't know why we have to withhold all EXP until the end of the battle because especially if you're trying to like train Pokemon and stuff, it makes it really difficult sometimes to give EXP to the right ones that you want to give. Because, oh, well, if it got knocked out, sorry, you're not going to get anything from that whole battle. That was a little frustrating for me.
yeah, I totally forgot that that was a thing. Yeah, no, I can see why that would not be ideal for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, aside from that, man, like I really enjoyed it, you know? I think like I said a lot of negative things, but I did really enjoy it, and this is one of my favorite Pokemon games. I don't think it's my absolute favorite, um, but it's up there definitely. I'd say like top three. Um, like if this had the combat mechanics that I'm looking for, then this would have been no doubt number one Pokemon game I've ever played. Um, and again, it is kind of a nitpick. It's a personal preference kind of thing. If you don't mind just having fast-paced battles, um, then I think you're gonna love it. And um, I think anyone that likes Pokemon should definitely give this a try because it's really well done. It's a really good game.
Yeah. Um, Two quick things I wanted to add in, and then
Yeah.
we'll do a revisit of one other thing real quick. Um, the story in a Pokemon game's never really been important, and I don't exactly think that the story in this game is anything crazy. Um, I couldn't tell you a whole lot of important plot points on why. Like for example, and this is something you find out in the first like 30 minutes of the game, so I don't feel bad saying this, especially for a couple years old game, but like the fact that the Diamond and the Pearl clans are kind of clashing, like I couldn't tell you why, besides that one of them likes or actually I do remember now, but like
Yeah,
I couldn't have pulled that out of nowhere. So the story isn't the most like impactful or anything, but one thing I do really like is that every single major character that you meet in the game is somewhat like there's a line that you can trace to someone that you've already seen in another Pokemon game, and they're not all just from Gen 4.
yeah.
There are some that are from other generations as well. And so I really like that. Um,
You could tell they're like the ancestors of those people, right? It is
right,
cool. It's cool.
right. I really like the music and um another thing that I really enjoyed about this game was how much it encourages you to kind of switch out your team and to try different Pokemon. Um, because you're creating the original Pokedex, right?
Hmm.
And just because you catch one species of a Pokemon, that's not enough to fully understand what's happening. So like, in a lot of my classes right now, we're really focusing on data science and that kind of stuff and the importance of having repetitions or multiple observations of something.
Hmm.
And so I really enjoyed that. And then that trickles into, okay, well, if you want to learn more about this Pokemon, like you have to see it in lots of different ways. You have to use certain moves a certain amount of times to see exactly what the effects are. You have to, use it on Pokemon that it's strong against, Pokemon that it's weak to. Um, I really, really enjoyed that. I felt like filling out the Pokedex in this one was so much more rewarding. And even though you have all these extra tasks of doing, because you like after you catch a Pokemon for the first time, like you can just throw Pokeballs at it and you're fairly likely to catch repeated ones. And so like it made sense on why you were doing it, and then the method behind doing it I didn't feel was very tedious, and then it encourages you to try out different types of Pokemon that you might not have used before. um and I really really enjoyed that because usually if I do a Pokemon game, if it's not my first playthrough, I'll pretty much build my team before I start playing, and then I won't really worry about catching anyone else. um like I'll only catch the Pokemon I know I'm going to use. um but in this game, like that's not recommended. And there were maybe 12 Pokemon that I was regularly using by the end of the game, like even to the end where, swapping out based off of where I was or what I had to do. And I think that's something that isn't always the most encouraged or necessary in other Pokemon games because of their battle systems and their what how the difficulty in those games shows itself, whereas the ways that Arceus tries to present its difficulty encourages more experimentation, in my opinion.
I did like that. And I like that you don't have to fill out every single research tick mark. Like you can, you get a research point for catching a certain number of Pokemon or defeating a certain number or seeing it use a specific move or defeating it with a specific move or type of move. That was nice too. So you didn't feel like you had to, like you said, it didn't get tedious. I think it was just the right amount. It was cool. Yeah.
Well, and if I'm remembering correctly, like Pokemon that were like the first couple stages or just not very um well suited for combat, like the requirements that you'd have to fully understand them was more about just catching them or seeing them do certain things rather than using them to beat certain Pokemon. So like it made like it felt like they took Pokemon that they knew were not going to be the most fun to use, and in order to fully understand them, they gave you other, better, more realistic ways of
Yeah, the criteria
reaching the monster.
for research is different for each Pokemon. Yeah, I agree. It's pretty well thought out. Yeah.
Um, and so two follow-up questions to kind of wrap us up here now that we're getting there. By the end of the game, or in this final fight that you're working through, or we're working through, might go back to work through. what was your main team of six that you were using?
Oh gosh. Typhlosion, Zoroark, Gardevoir, Golem. Not Gollum, Golem, right? Not from Lord of the Rings. Uh, Precious. Um, oh, come on. Magnezone and one other one. One other one that I'm spacing on. Um,
Did you use a bird?
I did use the big angry bird for a while. I swapped him out. I also used Luxray for a while, but I swapped him out. I also used Leafeon for quite a while. I think I'm actually going to put Leafeon back in because Leafeon dealt with a particular Garchomp fairly well at the end of the game. But there's one other one I'm completely
Okay.
spacing on. What was your
Okay.
team?
Um, I had a Typhlosion. I went and caught a Turtwig and leveled him up to a Torterra, because gotta do it.
Nice.
Um, I used a Mismagius,
Mm-hmm.
a Garchomp. Um, I think a Lucario was in there every once in a while, but he was definitely like member six of the bench and was quick to get swapped out if he
Yeah.
wasn't performing very well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had a water type, but I can't remember which. And then, yeah, I can't remember. It's been a couple years, so I can't
Oh,
remember.
my water type, you just helped me remember, was um oh my gosh, it's the one. Oh man, it's a water only type. You see him very early on in the game. He looks like a little um a ferret or something. Not like a ferret, but kind of like a dog, kind of like a ferret. It's like yellow looking, straight water type, one evolution. Um, it learns moves like Aqua Jet and Water
Oh,
Pulse.
Buizel, Floatzel.
Yes, yes, Floatzel. Floatzel is my water type. I didn't think I would leave that guy in on my team for the whole game, but like, man, that guy carried so hard. He put in a lot of work. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then you said that it's possibly in your top three. So now we're gonna revisit. This is something we've talked about before. Top three Pokemon games. Go.
I still think Emerald is my favorite, probably. Um, the last two I am not sure, but one would be Arceus and the other would be maybe Sword and Shield, actually. I put a lot of hours into that.
Really? Over
Yeah.
over Black and White?
The thing is, like, I really liked Black and White, but the thing I disliked the most was the majority of the cast, like the Pokemon I liked the least in that game. And that's sad for me.
Yeah, that's a killer. That's a killer.
Yeah. How about you?
Platinum's my favorite. Um, After that, I really enjoyed supposedly emulating Emerald. Um, I have to say supposedly for legal reasons. Um, I supposedly emulated that
When'd you
game.
do that?
I did that before my mission. Um,
Oh
Remember
yeah,
a
yeah,
few
oh I
months ago
remember.
where the emulator got a full launch release? You and I had been using that since its beta, remember?
Yeah,
So,
yes.
um,
Yes. Yes.
played through Emerald, really enjoyed it. Arceus is probably two, and then Emerald. Um,
I thought it was your favorite. I thought Arceus was your favorite Pokemon game of all time now.
so I think Arceus is the best Pokemon game,
Okay, okay.
but
Not
So
your
like
personal.
from a technical standpoint, I think it's the best one that they've done.
Yeah.
But for emotional, sentimental reasons, I'd still rather
Mm-hmm.
play them. So
I see, I see. Okay. Well, I think the game is a solid 8 out of 10. What do you think?
I'd put it higher than that. I'd probably throw it up at a 9 personally.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but it does make me hopeful for the next Legends game.
Legends
Um,
Pizza. Yeah.
I think I think they have a really solid foundation, a really good first start.
Yes.
Um, and I am really excited for Mega Evolutions to come back. Um, I think there's going to be a need for them to adjust it a little bit, make it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit less of a cakewalk in using Mega Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I love Mega Evolution designs and I love the concept of it. So
I feel like it's pretty much the consensus that Mega Evolutions were like the best gimmick they ever came up with.
no,
Yeah.
I know I've been seeing a lot recently about how people were like, well, you were given a Lucario that can Mega Evolve after like the fourth gym, and then like after that, like you didn't run into someone who used Mega Evolution against you for like another three gyms or something,
So it's
is
too
what I've
easy.
heard.
Hmm.
Right, so it just made it like you were never really in any danger because if you really needed to, you could just throw him in at the end, Mega Evolve him, and kind of sweep through a majority of
Mm.
the game.
Okay, okay.
Um, but I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I will definitely be buying the next Pokemon game. We skipped out on Scarlet and Violet, but
Yeah.
I find it very hard to believe that I will not be getting the next one. Maybe not on launch day. Maybe give him a little bit of time to work out any bugs or stuff that comes out. But I
Right.
think it's definitely something that I will play within the first year of release.
Do we have a year on that yet? I
I
don't
don't think
remember.
so. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
They just announced it, right? That they're working on it.
Yeah, I feel like that's a 2026 game. Once we get the new Switch, I think it'll probably be
A new Switch
2026.
game.
It'll probably be 2026 big Nintendo game that they release.
I'm gonna have to go back and check. I don't remember when they announced it. Did they say for Nintendo Switch? I don't remember. Because if they said that, that would make me wonder
I
whether it's
don't I
a.
don't think they did.
Yeah.
I don't think they did.
Yeah,
So
probably not. Yeah.
we'll see.
All right, man. Well, thank you all for listening as usual. We it's kind of a busy season, you know. So especially after the game of the year, we appreciate your patience for letting us cook, so to speak. Um, we're very grateful for our Patreon supporters, for our down to earth cockatiels. We have Matthew, Tyler, and Joshua. Thank you very much. And for our down to earth parakeets, we have Noah, J. Maurer, and Nicholas. We love you all, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you then.